Hey guys, it's Dr. May. How are all my DBTers doing out there? All right, so today I'm going to do an introduction to the emotion regulation module. Okay, so I have another video that's an introduction to emotions themselves, but this one's actually an introduction to the DBT emotion regulation module. And it kind of goes over what it has to offer you and also some challenges you may face along the way, just to kind of normalize this very challenging process. All right, so here it comes. There we go. All right, so here's our introduction. Hope you're all ready. Okay, so what is emotion regulation? Okay, so they define it as the process we use to influence. Notice I didn't say control, I said influence, right? Which emotions we have, when we have them, and how we experience and express them. Okay, so that's the gist of it. So I'm going to use this diagram, which I have also used in my Intro to Emotions video, but we're going to do a little more with it here. Okay, so this is a nice setup for how emotions work and also where the DBT emotion regulation skills fit into this process. Okay, so whenever we experience an emotion, which is kind of in the middle, there's usually some kind of an internal or an external triggering event. And from there, we experience different kinds of related thoughts, emotions, and body sensations. And in that middle section, there's double arrows because they all influence each other. And from there, we have an action that comes from it. So depending on how things go in the middle section depends on the action we end up choosing. So we can influence emotions by influencing all the things around them, kind of like getting at it indirectly. And that's what the skills are going to help us do. Change the events, change the thoughts, change the bodily reactions, and then change the action we choose. Okay, so all that kind of will make us more effective in dealing with our emotions. Okay, so here's an example. Okay, so the event is somebody bumped into you while you were walking to your DBT group. All right, I'm assuming you in DBT, but if you're not, that's okay. Maybe you're just walking in a store and somebody bumped into you. All right, it doesn't really matter, okay? There's vulnerability factors that could influence how you're already being set up for this event. So let's say you didn't get a great night's sleep, or you're a little wired up because you had too much coffee and you're a little bit anxious and irritable because of the caffeine. Maybe you had a donut this morning, so you had a little too much sugar, and that's kind of affecting your physiology a little bit. Or maybe you even had an argument with someone earlier in the day, and you're already not in the best mood, and then somebody bumps into you. Ugh. Okay, so your immediate response is anger. Okay, oh man, what's this guy's problem? What's the matter with him? He's a jerk, and I don't deserve to be treated this way, and all these thoughts are running through your mind that's fueling your anger. And at the same time, your body's responding with anger because there's always a physiological component. So maybe you're noticing your heart's racing and your blood's boiling and you're clenching your fists and you're sweating and you're breathing fast and all that kind of stuff. All right. So all that's working together in that middle section. And as a result, maybe you shove the guy back, right? Or you give him the finger, or you start cursing at him and you start thinking, oh, I'm going to get him later and I'm going to get him twice as worse as he got me. Okay, so you're plotting revenge. Okay, and then afterwards, maybe it felt great in the moment to give him the finger or something like that. You're like, yeah, I got this guy. But then later on, maybe you're like, geez, I lost control again. Why did I have to do that? What's the matter with me? I keep messing up like this, and you're not feeling so great about how you responded, especially maybe if you're working on your anger and this was a little bit of a slip up for you. Okay, but watch what happens if DBT skills for emotion regulation come in the mix. Okay, so there's a skill called ABC Please, which is going to actually be 2 videos because it's such a broad and complex skill and there's so much good stuff in there. But they're both designed to, ABC and the please part are both designed to reduce vulnerability to negative emotions. So to kind of put you in a better position to handle whatever stressors come your way so you're a little bit more resilient. So if you got a good night's sleep and maybe you had decaf coffee or you had fruit for breakfast or oatmeal, which is my go-to oatmeal, maybe you're feeling a little bit better physiologically. And so when someone bumped into you, it bothered you, but maybe it wasn't as like an extreme problem as if, something worse was going on. Okay, so now we have maybe minor irritation in the middle. And maybe, you're changing your thoughts around a little bit. There's a DBT emotion regulation skill called check the facts. So maybe I'm like not completely sure about the facts, but I'm trying to like think about what could be going on with that person. So maybe I realize, that this guy looked like he was in a hurry. Maybe he was not even thinking about me. He was just like rushing to wherever he was going. Maybe he was late for group and he just like was thinking about getting there, and I wasn't even on his mind. It wasn't like he did it on purpose, right? Or maybe the person has his own problems. Maybe he's struggling with borderline personality disorder or bipolar, and he's not on the right meds yet and doesn't have the skills yet. And I got to cut the guy a break, and stuff like that. Or maybe I run through some consequences in my mind. Oh, I didn't like that, but you know what? If I react to it or shove him back, it's going to be worse. Okay. So that kind of changing the thinking starts to change the feeling too, right? There's also a skill called problem solving for emotions. So if the guy's making me angry, I can go to the anger section of problem solving for emotions and try to figure out what some options are for me to solve the problem that are leading to that emotion. Okay, and then down for body sensations, what if instead of, just going with the, the blood boiling and the sweating and the tension and stuff like that, I chose to use the emotion regulation skill of mindfulness and acceptance of current emotions, which largely involves tuning in to my feelings and maybe the way they're manifesting themselves in my body. So for example, I notice the way my body feels when I'm angry. I notice I'm breathing really shallow, and I say, you know what? Let me deepen my breaths. And I notice that my muscles getting tense, and I say, you know what? Let me start to relax my muscles. And none of that could have happened if I wasn't mindful of my response, right? Or I accepted my anger instead of trying to like shove it away or exacerbate it. Sorry for that siren in the background. I'm not sure if you guys can hear that, but I guess something's going on out there. Anyway, let's keep going. I don't want to interrupt us, okay? So if we change our thinking and we change our body sensations and we change the vulnerability factors using our DBT skills, the actions we take might be a lot more effective. So instead of shoving back or getting revenge in some way, maybe we're in a better position to just walk away or to let it go. And not make eye contact, gently avoid, okay? So I have on the top opposite to emotion action, okay? Because that's one of the skills we could use to do the opposite of what we feel like doing. So let's say I still had some anger left over, and my anger is making me want to take the action of getting up in the guy's face. So the opposite action would be to walk away and kind of distance myself and gently avoid the person. So there's even a skill to influence our actions directly, right? So if I do all those things and I'm more effective, the after effects, instead of feeling bad about myself and shameful for what I decided to do, maybe I'm going to feel more pride, or I'll feel happy that I was able to stay in control and my self-respect is more intact because I'm acting in line with my values and I'm treating people the way I want to be treated. All right, so everything can kind of be influenced when I start using these emotion regulation skills. They really have a wide-ranging effect, and there's different ways they can be used to affect the entire situation. All right, see how that works? Pretty good, right? All right, so overall, the goals of emotion regulation are to reduce our suffering and to increase our happiness. Sounds pretty darn good, right? Not bad. Just like in that situation, if we, handle it better, we're not suffering with the emotions we have and with the after effects of how we're acting and all that stuff. And we eventually are going to start to feel happier. And there's actually skills built into ABC Please about increasing positive emotions and positive experiences. So be sure to check that out. Okay, so as you can see, there's a lot of benefits for using your emotion regulation skills and for getting better at managing your emotions. All right. This is just a nice little infographic I happened to find, but it's just a few examples of some of the benefits you might experience. So one is enhanced physical health, right? As you might know, if you're chronically stressed out because of your intense emotions and the situations you're in, it has a really taxing effect on your body. So humans are not meant to experience stress like on an ongoing basis. It's supposed to like get us through a crisis, and then the stress reaction is supposed to go back down. But if we can't shut it off because we keep putting, fueling the emotional fire, so to speak, it wears us down. And it increases our cortisol, or, we have cardiovascular problems, we could have stomach problems, it changes the way our brain works, all kinds of things can happen. So when we get better at emotion regulation, all those things start to improve, okay? Another one is, well, actually there's 4 on this page that have to do with interpersonal effectiveness. So, we have, like I said, increased personal effectiveness. We're better at understanding other people. So if I'm better at understanding my emotions and my emotional experience, I really might be able to empathize better with people, because I can maybe like recognize that they're feeling something that I felt before. And I remember how I felt and how I dealt with it and what it did for me. And now I could like empathize or validate them more effectively. And that could increase in our bond together and improve our relationship, right? And give me better ways of relating to that person. If I am better at emotion regulation, it helps me manage conflicts more effectively. Because sometimes it's hard to have, a conflict that works out for you if you're totally losing control, right? If you're only thinking about you and you're yelling and screaming and, flying off the handle, it's very hard to resolve a conflict. You're just going to increase the amount of conflicts you're going to have. So emotion regulation, better ways of getting through it, because you'll probably be able to stay calmer. Okay, so empathy, fulfilling professional and personal relationships, all right? So it can help you at work or school, as well as at home and with your friends and stuff like that. So it helps remain calm under pressure and become better thinkers and decision makers. That's the kind of the DBT code word, for distress tolerance. Okay, they're not using DBT terms exactly, but it's kind of like if you're better at distress tolerance, and you can get into wise mind, you'll be able to think things through, make better decisions, get through a crisis better, see how this is going, right? So emotions have effect on all these things. All right, so just to keep it real, all right, it's hard to manage your emotions. Even when you've been through the module like a million times, like I have, it still could be a challenge. Or maybe you're good at doing it for certain situations, but something new comes along, and now it's like really hard to manage your emotions. So we get it, okay? So I'm just gonna go over a couple of the challenges that we've identified in DBT that could get in the way, all right? And just to validate yourself that they are challenges. All right, so 1, biological factors. You might be wired up as just a really sensitive person where you tend to be more emotional, and that's just how your brain is operating. And using the skills starts to reshape your brain, but you might actually need medication, and maybe you're not even on the right medication right now. So that might make it really challenging for you. I work in an inpatient hospital, and when people aren't on the right meds, it's really hard to do any skills effectively. So if that's your situation, just be patient with it. And when you're a little calmer from the medication, you might be able to better use these emotion regulation skills. Okay. Another common challenge is that if you grew up in an environment, or you currently in an environment where no one really pays attention to you unless you start, carrying on and getting really overtly emotional, it's going to make sense that you've learned over time that that's the way people listen to me, right? If I express emotions in a kind of a low or medium way, people don't really, pay much attention. But if I start yelling and screaming or carrying on or getting hysterical about something, all of a sudden people start coming around, right? So if that's the case, it makes sense that your emotions have kind of been shaped to get elevated all the time, all right? And we can reshape that, but that happens pretty commonly. Okay, sometimes we just don't have the skill. We don't know how to apply it maybe, or maybe I heard about the skill and, intellectually I understand emotion regulation, but in this particular circumstance, like, I don't know what the heck to do. So we get that too. And that takes some help. And you might have to work with somebody to figure out how to apply a skill in a situation. On the other hand, you might have the skill and know what to do, but you're not so in the mood to use it. Okay. Sometimes, when we're really in emotional mind, we can just say, screw that, I'm not doing it. I'm just going to go back to my target behavior. So if we're not that motivated to use skills, it's hard to put them into action. So what's the skill we got to draw out from the stress tolerance? Does anybody know? It's willingness, right? So we got to dig deep and get that willingness back to try a skill, even if it's a challenge. All right, so finally, when we have misconceptions about emotions or hold myths about emotions and how they operate or what's possible and what's not possible, that could hold us back from trying the skills or for thinking they're even possible, okay? So in the next slide, I'm gonna review with you some myths about emotions. Okay, so they say that some people think, you might think too, that there's a right way to feel in every situation. And if you're not feeling that thing, that maybe something's wrong with you, right? And you might be ashamed to even talk about what you're feeling because you kind of were not so sure it was the right thing to feel. But guess what? There is no right thing to feel. Everyone has a unique experience, right? And you're allowed to feel whatever it is, okay? And if you try to ignore it, it's just going to make it worse. Number two, being emotional means being out of control. Sometimes, not all the time. It doesn't have to, right? Maybe it's meant that for you, but it doesn't always have to mean that for you, okay? So that's where the skill could come in. Number three, some emotions are stupid, all right? So that's just being judgmental. And as you know from mindfulness how skills, we're trying not to judge our emotions. Other people are the best of how number four, other people are the best judge of how I am feeling. I mean, maybe people told you that. Maybe they tried to tell you, you're not feeling this, you're feeling that, and they tried to, define you or define what you're feeling. And that might have been their thing, their issue. But in fact, if you tune in and get better at reading yourself, you're going to be the best judge about your own emotions. Okay, so don't let someone tell you you're feeling something you're not. Number five, my emotions are who I am. Listen, if emotions are dominating your life and you're often an emotional mind, that could totally feel like the truth, right? That you're kind of defining yourself by your emotions. I'm an angry person or something like that, right? But you're so much more. Emotions are something that you experience. They're like the clouds that flow through the sky, but you're the blue sky, okay? You're so much more than your emotions. They're just part of what you're going through. They're coming through you, okay? Number six, emotions just happen for no reason. Now, sometimes we're not sure why we're feeling what we're feeling, but there's always a reason, whether it's just a biological reason because we're cycling through something, or it's something unconscious that kind of came up that we're not really aware of, or we are triggered by somebody and we got emotional before we were able to think clearly about it and figure it out. That might happen, but there's always a reason, okay? There's always something we could validate about why we're feeling what we're feeling. 7, okay, so this is kind of like gender stereotypes for stuff. So for example, boys don't cry or nice girls don't get angry. In our society, right, we have things that are more appropriate for boys to feel and girls to feel based on what society tells us. But in fact, we all are allowed to have a full experience of emotions, of all different emotions. We're allowed to have that full range, all the keys on the piano, not just a couple, okay? So if you're a guy and you were told you're not allowed to be vulnerable and sad and cry, well, that's just something people told you. That's really not completely true, all right? Number 8, emotional truth is what counts, not factual truth. Well, how about both count, right? Like the 3 states of mind is emotional mind, reasonable mind, and wise mind, right? So there's some things that your emotions are telling you, some information they're providing, but there's also some facts you could consider, right? And when you put them together, then you have a wise mind. It's not or, it's both and. Number 9, creativity requires intense, often out of control emotions. It's sometimes your emotions can influence your creativity, but if your emotions are still out of control, it's probably hard to really focus them so that your creativity is at its top form. You might be able to, if you regulate it a little bit, but draw upon your emotional experience, you'll probably have like the best result possible, okay? And finally, people should do whatever they feel like doing. Now, I'm not saying don't ever do what you feel like doing, but if it's a pure emotional mind decision, we all know what's going to happen then. Okay, so that's the end of this one. All right, so this is the emotion regulation intro. So I hope that helped a little bit. And look out for the other videos that are going to go over the emotion regulation skills themselves. Okay, so hope you have a good day, and I'll see you the next time. Bye, guys.